You see, there's a moment in the growth of any tree where it stops putting energy into the branches it has already grown and begins drawing everything inward, down into the roots. From the outside, it might look like nothing is happening. It might even look like the tree is dying. But beneath the surface, something entirely different is occurring. A deepening, a strengthening, a quiet preparation for a kind of growth the old branches couldn't have supported. That is where you are right now. The silence isn't emptiness, it's depth being formed. Here's what nobody tells you about transformation. It doesn't arrive with a clear announcement. It doesn't come with a map or a timeline or a guarantee of what waits on the other side. It comes as a feeling of in-between. It comes as that strange detachment from the life you used to recognize as yours. And because we live in a world that worships certainty, that tells us productivity is purpose and busyness is meaning, this in-between space feels like failure. It feels like loss. But what if it's actually the most intelligent thing your entire being has ever done? Your discomfort right now is not random. It is precise. Something in you has grown beyond what your current circumstances can hold, and your whole system, your consciousness, your energy, your sense of self, is in the process of adjusting to match who you are actually becoming. The heaviness you feel isn't weakness. The confusion isn't a breakdown. They are symptoms of expansion, not collapse. They are what it feels like to become unbreakable before you know you're unbreakable. Think about what it takes to forge something truly strong. The process is never comfortable. It involves pressure. It involves heat. It involves a complete restructuring of what something is made of at its core level. And the material, while it's in that process, has no way of knowing what it's becoming. It only knows the intensity of the moment it's in. You are in that moment right now, my friend. And the intensity you're feeling isn't the universe punishing you. It's the universe building something in you that ordinary circumstances never could. So if you've been wondering why nothing feels quite right, why your old motivations have gone quiet, why you feel this pull towards something you can't yet articulate, stop wondering if you're broken. Start asking what is being built. Because something is, something real, something deep, something that can't be shaken once it fully arrives. And the fact that you're here, that something pulled you to this exact moment, is not coincidence. It's information. There's a reason the most unshakable people you've ever met didn't get that way through comfort. Think about that for a moment. The people in your life who carry a certain kind of steadiness, the ones who don't flinch when things fall apart, who seem to move through difficulty with something you can only describe as knowing. Where did that come from? It didn't come from easy seasons. It didn't come from a life that cooperated. It came from exactly the kind of pressure you're feeling right now. You see, there's a process that metallurgists have used for thousands of years to transform ordinary steel into something that can withstand almost anything. They call it tempering. And here's what's interesting about it. The steel has to be heated to a temperature just below its breaking point. Not warm, not uncomfortable, almost breaking. And then it's cooled, and then heated again. And each time it goes through that cycle, something changes at a molecular level. The internal structure reorganizes itself into something more resilient than it was before. What looked like destruction from the outside was actually precision. It was the forge doing exactly what it was designed to do. This is where you are right now. Do you understand that? The disorientation you're feeling, the exhaustion that doesn't seem to lift no matter how much you rest, the sense of being suspended somewhere between who you were and who you're becoming. That's not weakness showing up. That's the forge. That's the process of becoming unbreakable, actually happening inside of you, whether you can feel it or not. Most people mistake the forge for the fire that destroys them. And that's the tragedy, my friend. Because the moment they start to feel the heat, the moment things get uncomfortable enough that nothing familiar seems to work anymore, they assume something has gone terribly wrong. They fight it. They try to cool themselves down before the process is finished. And in doing so, they step out of the very crucible that was preparing them for something extraordinary. But what if the discomfort is data? What if the confusion isn't a sign that you're lost, but a sign that your internal compass is recalibrating to a direction your old self didn't have the capacity to point toward? What if everything that feels like it's falling apart is actually falling into a configuration you can't yet see? The people who come through these seasons, unshakable, not unchanged, but unshakable, are not special in the way we usually think about specialness. They didn't have easier circumstances. They didn't have more support, or more certainty, or more clarity about what was coming. What they had was a willingness to stay in the heat long enough for the transformation to complete. They trusted the process, even when the process felt like it was ending them. And here's the truth that most of the world will never tell you. Resilience isn't built in the moments when life is manageable. It's built in the dark. It's built in the in-between, in the pressure, in the seasons when nothing makes sense, and everything you used to rely on has gone quiet. The pressure you're feeling right now isn't trying to break you. It's trying to build something in you that can't be broken. Something in you is being let go of right now, and the part of you that doesn't understand this process is the part that's grieving it, and that grief is real. Don't dismiss it. The version of you that used to show up in certain rooms, that used to need certain people, that used to believe very specific things about what you were capable of, that version had a life. It had a logic to it. It kept you safe in ways you didn't even realize you were being kept safe. So when it starts to dissolve, of course something inside you reaches back for it. Of course there's a mourning, but here's what you need to understand. What's dying isn't you. It never was. It was a costume you wore so well you forgot you had it on. Think about what actually happens inside a cocoon. Most people picture it as a kind of waiting room. The caterpillar goes in, the butterfly comes out, and somewhere in between, there's just stillness. But that's not what happens. What happens is far more radical than that. The caterpillar's body doesn't simply rearrange. It dissolves, almost entirely. It becomes something close to liquid, a formless biological soup, before any new structure begins to take shape. From the outside, you'd have no idea anything was happening. The cocoon just sits there, still and unremarkable. But inside, everything is in complete reorganization. That's what confinement can look like when it's actually transformation. That's what the season of your life is doing to you right now. You see, the old coping mechanisms you built, the way you learned to make yourself smaller so others would stay, the way you learned to be certain so you wouldn't feel afraid, the way you learned to perform a version of yourself that the world rewarded. Those weren't flaws. They were intelligent adaptations. They were the right shell for that moment in your life. But you've grown, and what was once protection has become restriction. What once helped you move forward is now the very thing slowing you down. What if the beliefs you're losing about your own limitations aren't losses at all? What if the identity that's crumbling was never actually yours to begin with, just something you inherited, or built in a moment of fear, or wore long enough that it started to feel permanent? So much of what we call ourselves is really just a story that stopped being updated. And when the update finally comes, when your system begins to rewrite what it knows to be true about who you are and what you're here for, it doesn't feel like growth. It feels like grief. But here's what's actually happening beneath that grief. There's a more accurate version of you trying to come through. Not a perfect version, not a finished version, just a truer one. One that doesn't need the old armor because it's building something sturdier from the inside. One that doesn't need the old story because it's living something real. The discomfort you feel right now isn't the universe punishing you for wanting more. It's preparation. It's the precise internal environment required for what you're becoming to actually take root. Most people grieve the version of themselves they've outgrown without ever realizing that's what the grief is about. They think something has gone wrong. They think they've lost something essential, but what they've actually lost is a limitation they'd spent years mistaking for identity. And the strange, aching spaciousness that comes after. That's not emptiness. That's room. Room for something that actually fits. You haven't lost who you were. You've simply grown beyond what that version of you could hold. The people who come out of these seasons completely changed. Lighter, sharper, more themselves than they've ever been. They didn't have an easier path than you. That's the part nobody tells you. They didn't get some gentler version of the fire. They didn't have fewer doubts, or less confusion, or some secret map that made the darkness easier to cross. What they had was something far simpler and far more difficult than any of that. They stopped fighting what was happening to them. You see, most of us are taught from the very beginning that discomfort is a problem to be solved, that if something hurts, you push through it, or you walk away from it, but you don't just sit inside it. So when this kind of transformation arrives, this strange, disorienting unraveling of everything you thought you knew about yourself, the instinct is to resist it, to argue with it, to negotiate, to ask how long it will take, and whether it's really necessary, and whether there's a faster way to the other side. But here's what that resistance actually costs you. It doesn't stop the process. It just makes the process heavier. The transformation is happening regardless of whether you fight it. The only thing your resistance changes is how much energy you burn, suffering through something that was always trying to help you. Think about what it feels like to be caught in a current of water. Every cell in your body wants to fight it, to push against it, to swim directly back to where you were standing before. But anyone who's ever been in that situation knows what fighting the current actually does. It exhausts you. It disorients you. It turns something that could have been navigated into something that feels like it's trying to drown you. And the moment you stop, the moment you let the current carry you, rather than destroy you, everything changes. Not the water, not the direction, just your relationship to it. Unbreakable people understand this at a level that can't really be taught, only lived. They've learned that the suffering isn't in the transformation. It's in the argument with the transformation. And the moment you stop needing this season to look different than it looks, to feel different than it feels, to arrive faster than it's arriving, something in the weight of it actually shifts. Not because the path gets easier, because you stop adding the weight of resistance to a load you were already carrying. This doesn't mean you become passive. It doesn't mean you stop moving, or stop caring, or stop asking what comes next. What it means is that you move with what's happening rather than against it. You bring your energy into alignment with the process instead of spending all of it trying to undo the process. That's the difference between people who are broken by these seasons and people who are built by them. Not talent, not luck, not some exceptional strength that you don't have access to. They just stopped spending their energy fighting the current and started using it to swim. There's a version of this moment that a lot of people never reach, not because they weren't capable, but because they turned back too soon. Think about what this season of your life has actually been doing. It's been removing things, not randomly, not cruelly, but with a kind of precision that only becomes visible in hindsight. The distractions that used to keep you busy have lost their pull. The noise that used to drown out your own thoughts has gone quiet. The things you used to use to define yourself, the roles, the routines, the relationships built around a version of you that no longer fully exists, they've all started to loosen their grip. And in that stripping away, something uncomfortable has been left behind. You, just you, without the scaffolding. Most people, when they find themselves here, panic. They reach for something to fill the silence. They manufacture urgency where there isn't any. They throw themselves back into motion just to escape the stillness. And that's the turnback point. That's where so many people exit the process just before it completes. Because here's what this moment actually is, my friend. It's a test, not the kind designed to fail you, not some cosmic punishment for the things you've done or the person you used to be. It's the kind of test designed to reveal you, to show you, in the absence of everything external, what's actually there, what you're actually made of, who you actually are when nothing outside of you is doing the work of telling you. You see, for most of your life, identity has been something built outward, built from feedback, from achievement, from how other people respond to you. And that version of identity is real, but it's fragile because it depends on conditions staying in place. The moment the conditions shift, and they always shift, that kind of identity starts to dissolve. What this season is teaching you is that there's another kind, the kind that doesn't require conditions, the kind that exists in the quiet, in the discomfort, in the moments when absolutely nothing external is confirming it. That knowledge, the kind you can only earn by staying present while everything else falls away, is something no achievement could ever give you. A title can be taken, a relationship can end, a bank account can change. But the understanding of who you are, at the core of yourself, forged in a season like this one, that cannot be removed. That's what unbreakable actually means. Not that you never feel the weight of things, but that you've met yourself in the dark and you know what's there. The people who run from this moment never find out. They spend years chasing external proof of something they could have found inside. And the people who stay, who resist the urge to fill the silence, who don't perform okayness before they've actually earned it, they come out of this carrying something quiet and immovable, something that doesn't need to announce itself. What's being asked of you right now isn't more effort, it's more presence. At some point in this process, something shifts, not dramatically, not all at once, but you notice that the weight has changed. It doesn't announce itself. There's no lightning bolt, no sudden clarity that arrives with a soundtrack. It's quieter than that. You wake up one morning and the exhaustion that felt like it was woven into your bones has loosened just slightly. Something that was clenched inside you has released without you forcing it to. And you realize, maybe for the first time in a long while, that you're not fighting yourself anymore. This is what allowing actually feels like. Not passive, not resigned, but something closer to a deep, full breath after a long time of barely breathing at all. You see, the resistance was never protecting you. It was just familiar. When you've been in survival mode long enough, the bracing itself starts to feel like strength. You hold everything so tightly. Your timeline, your expectations, your idea of how the transformation is supposed to look. And you mistake that grip for control. But what if I told you that the very thing you've been holding so tightly is exactly what's been slowing everything down? What if the new version of your life isn't being withheld from you, but simply can't enter through a door you haven't yet opened? Allowing isn't about giving up. It's about getting out of your own way long enough for what's already forming to actually land. Think about how you can't force a seed to become a tree faster by digging it up to check on its progress. Every time you go looking for evidence that the change is happening, every time you scan your circumstances for proof that things are shifting, you're interrupting the exact process you're desperate to complete. The tree doesn't grow faster because you're watching it. It grows because the conditions are right and you've stopped pulling it out of the ground. This is where you are right now. The conditions are right. Something is already growing beneath the surface. Your only job now is to stop digging. But here's what most people miss about this stage. Allowing isn't a single decision you make once. It's a practice you return to again and again. You'll feel the pull toward the old resistance. You'll feel the urge to control, to manage, to demand that this transformation makes sense on your terms. And in that moment, the question isn't whether you feel that pull, it's whether you act on it. Will you allow yourself right now to trust what you cannot yet see? Will you allow yourself to feel the reality of who you're becoming even before the evidence has shown up around you? Because that's the real work. Not striving, not forcing, becoming. What's shifting in you isn't just your circumstances or your interests or your relationships. It's your entire relationship to yourself, the version of you that needed constant external validation, that needed the outcome to arrive before you could feel at peace. That version is dissolving. What's replacing it is something quieter and far more durable, an inner knowing that doesn't depend on conditions, a steadiness that doesn't require the world to cooperate before it shows up. This is what becoming unbreakable actually looks like from the inside. Not invincible, not untouchable, but rooted in something the world cannot easily shake. You've already done the hardest part. You stayed. You didn't turn back when the familiar fell away. You didn't run when the discomfort became something you couldn't name. You stayed present through the shedding, through the silence, through the season where nothing seemed to be happening and everything was happening beneath the surface. And now the only thing left is to stop arguing with the arrival. Stop negotiating with the new. Let it come the way it wants to come, in the shape it's actually taken, on the timeline it's always been on. Trust what's happening to you, my friend, because what's happening to you is exactly what was always meant to.